The sun filtered through the stained glass windows of St. Catherine's Chapel, casting jewel-toned patterns on the polished marble floor. White roses lined every pew, their fragrance thick in the air. A harpist plucked delicate notes that floated above the hushed conversations of the seated guests. Everything about this wedding looked like it had stepped straight out of a magazine, immaculate, graceful, and utterly romantic. But for Liam Bennett, it didn't feel right. Not at all. At 10 years old, Liam was the ring bearer in his father's wedding. His black tuxedo itched at the collar, and his too tight shoes pinched his toes. But it wasn't the formal wear that made him uncomfortable. It was Vanessa. To everyone else, Vanessa Chase was a dream. She was charming, stunning, poised. Her laugh came easy, and she always knew the right thing to say. She'd swooped into their lives a year after Liam's mother died, filling the silence in their house with sweet perfume and classical music. Mark Bennett, Liam's dad, had smiled again, and that had meant everything to Liam at first. But then things started to shift. Liam sat stiffly on the bench near the front, hands clenched tightly around the velvet ring pillow. As the officiant made his way to the altar, Liam's eyes scanned the rows of guests. Everyone looked blissfully unaware. The bridesmaids giggled quietly, the groomsmen whispered and adjusted their ties. Vanessa stood just outside the arched entry, her veil lifted, laughing softly with her maid of honor, and she glanced at Liam. It was only for a second, but it was enough. There it was again, that look, cold, calculated, like someone flipping a switch. Behind their eyes, her face returned to its usual soft expression a beat later, but Liam had seen it too many times to ignore. He remembered the first time it happened. He'd spilled juice on the white couch in the living room, one of the few things Vanessa brought when she moved in. She didn't shout or cry. She simply stared at him, her smile frozen, her eyes narrowing for just a breath too long. Then she'd patted his head, murmured that accidents happen, and left the room. But later, his favorite toy was gone, thrown out, she claimed, because it was broken beyond repair. Liam swallowed hard. His hands were sweating now, not from nerves, but from dread. No one had listened when he tried to explain. He'd told his dad about the missing toy, about the icy stairs, about the way Vanessa locked the study and whispered on the phone when she thought he was asleep. But Mark just laughed softly, ruffled Liam's hair, and said, "She's trying her best, buddy. She's not your mom, but she loves us." But Liam had seen the papers. 3 weeks ago, while looking for his math homework, he'd opened the wrong drawer in the study, the one Vanessa always kept locked. Inside, he found a manila folder with his dad's name written in block letters. Inside were documents, a life insurance policy for $5 million signed 3 months earlier. Vanessa's name was listed as the primary beneficiary. Liam remembered the chill that swept through him then, like stepping barefoot onto ice. Since then, he'd watched everything closely. Vanessa's late-night calls, her odd trips out at strange hours, the way she flinched when Mark mentioned any changes to his will or finances. Once, Liam had followed her to the backyard and saw her tearing up what looked like handwritten notes before tossing them into the fire pit. He never told his dad that part. He didn't want to sound paranoid, but it haunted him. Liam didn't know exactly what Vanessa was planning, but he knew one thing. She wasn't marrying his dad for love. He glanced at the officiant now who had begun preparing his notes. Behind him, Vanessa was making her grand entrance, a bouquet in hand, all smiles and grace. The guests rose, the music swelled, and Liam felt like screaming. He tightened his grip on the ring pillow and stared at his father, tall, strong, and beaming with happiness at the end of the aisle. Mark looked like a man who'd finally found peace again, but he didn't know he was walking into a storm. Liam's chest burned. Maybe it was fear, maybe it was anger. He wasn't sure, but he knew what he had to do. Vanessa was halfway down the aisle now, eyes locked on Mark. She moved like a queen, her every step calculated, every glance choreographed. And then she looked at Liam again. But this time, he didn't look away. He stood up slowly, the ring pillow in his hands shaking slightly. And before anyone could stop him, he walked directly into the center aisle. The music faltered. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Vanessa paused. "Dad," Liam called, voice sharp and clear. Mark turned, brows furrowing. "Liam, what are you—" "I have to tell you something," Liam said, his voice rising above the stunned silence. "You can't marry her. She's not who you think she is." Vanessa's smile collapsed. The air turned electric. "She's lying to you, Dad? She doesn't love you?" Liam continued, tears filling his eyes, but his voice unwavering. "I found papers, insurance stuff. She's planning something bad. You have to listen to me this time." Gasps echoed across the room. Vanessa dropped her bouquet. Mark stepped toward Liam, confusion written all over his face. "Liam, slow down, son. What are you talking about?" "She's going to hurt you," Liam said. "She's only here for the money." For a second, time stopped. No one breathed. Then Vanessa spoke, her voice lower, colder. "That's enough, Liam," she said, her tone stripped of warmth. "You're ruining your father's special day." Mark turned to her. "Vanessa, what's he talking about? Is there something I should know?" And right then, Liam took the ring pillow and pulled out the folded insurance document he'd hidden inside. He handed it to his father. The color drained from Mark's face as he read the fine print. His hands trembled. He looked at Vanessa, who now stood still as a statue. Her face had lost all pretense. In the chaos that followed, gasps, raised voices. Someone calling security. Mark looked at his son. Truly looked at him. And for the first time, he didn't see a grieving child acting out. He saw a brave, brilliant boy who had just saved his life. What no one saw coming was what happened next. Mark took out his phone and whispered 3 words that cracked through the chapel like a gunshot. "Call 911 now." Liam couldn't sleep. While the rest of the house settled into the muffled hush of midnight, he lay wide-eyed in his room, fingers clenched around his blanket, heart drumming with a truth he couldn't yet name. He didn't know what exactly Vanessa was hiding, but he was certain now something was off. Her perfect smile cracked when no one was looking, and he had caught her whispering into the phone one night, the edge in her voice sharp like broken glass. When she noticed him, her tone flipped so fast it gave him whiplash. "Just talking to the florist, sweetheart," she had chirped. But who talks to a florist at 11:47 p.m.? It started with that moment. That was the first crack in her porcelain mask. The next day, while Mark was at work and Vanessa was in the garden making calls, Liam tiptoed into her study. Once off limits, now his battlefield. He felt like a spy in one of those old movies his mom used to watch, except the stakes were terrifyingly real. He rummaged through drawers, folders, anything that might explain the pit in his stomach. It wasn't long before he found something strange, a life insurance policy tucked beneath a stack of bridal magazines. At first, it didn't seem odd. Grown-ups were always preparing for things, right? But this one had his dad's name on it. The policy was taken out just a few weeks ago. The beneficiary? Vanessa? The amount? $5 million? Liam's breath caught in his throat. He didn't know everything about insurance, but he knew enough to realize it was a lot of money. Why hadn't Dad mentioned this? And then came the bombshell. A sticky note attached to the back of the file read in Vanessa's loopy handwriting, "Push date sooner. Payout delay equals 6 weeks max." Payout? For what? Liam's fingers trembled. He tucked the paper back into the folder exactly the way he found it and kept digging. Behind a photo album in the lower drawer, his hand brushed against a false back. It popped loose with a faint click, revealing a slim, locked box. He jimmied it open with a letter opener. Inside were two things: a second ID card with a different name and a different state, and a burner phone. The ID said Rachel Vane. Same face, same smile, totally different person. Liam's pulse thundered in his ears. He turned on the burner phone, praying it didn't need a password, and it didn't. Vanessa must have gotten lazy, or maybe she never thought a kid would be the one to unmask her. The phone was full of text messages. Most were between her and a man named K. No full name, just that single cold letter. Liam scrolled, stomach knotting tighter with every word. K, are we still good for the 19th? After that, we're home free. Vanessa, everything's set. Vows, payout, honeymoon. He has no idea. K, make it clean. Nothing messy. You're not new at this. Vanessa, I've done it before. This is the last one. Liam's fingers froze. Done it before? He swallowed hard, backing away from the desk as if it might bite him. His chest felt like it was caving in. He had come here looking for answers, but he'd found something far more terrifying. This wasn't just a woman with a few secrets. This was a predator, a seasoned con artist, maybe even worse. And now she was marrying his dad. Liam backed out of the room, carefully resetting everything just the way it had been. He didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't run to his father. He knew better. If he made a wrong move, she'd cover her tracks. Maybe she'd even disappear before anyone could stop her. Or worse, before she could hurt someone. Instead, he made a plan. That night, as Mark and Vanessa reviewed seating charts over wine and candlelight, Liam sat silently on the stairs, phone in hand, recording one of their conversations through the half-open door. Everything's going to be perfect, Vanessa said, her voice like silk. Our new life, our new beginning, just a few more days? Mark chuckled. Let's hope the honeymoon's as relaxing as the wedding is stressful. Vanessa gave a low laugh. Oh, darling, the honeymoon will be unforgettable. Liam shivered. He needed more proof, something undeniable. Over the next 2 days, he followed her like a shadow. When she left for dress fittings, he tailed her on his bike. She didn't go to any boutique. She went to a seedy motel on the outskirts of town, where a man in dark glasses was waiting outside room 6. She kissed him. Not a friendly kiss. The kind of kiss that meant Dad wasn't the only man in her life. Liam snapped photos. Shaky, but clear enough. He captured a few shots of them going into the room, just enough to raise suspicion. When she left, she was all smiles again, just like always. But now Liam had her mask and what lay underneath. He didn't sleep the night before the wedding. Instead, he wrote everything down. The emails, the insurance, the texts, the photos, the fake ID. He compiled them in a folder and labeled it, "Read now. Don't hesitate." He placed it on his father's pillow, but when morning came, it was still unopened. Mark hadn't seen it, and now guests were arriving. The backyard sparkled with fairy lights, violins played softly, and Vanessa looked like a dream in white lace, but to Liam, she looked like a ghost in waiting. The moment was slipping away. The vows were about to begin. And so, with his hands trembling, but his heart like steel, Liam stood up from his seat. He walked to the altar past shocked guests and pulled on his father's sleeve. "Dad," he whispered, "don't say I do. Read this. Right now, it's life or death." At first, Mark looked confused, but something in Liam's voice, raw, trembling, true, snapped him out of his daze. He opened the folder. Everything stopped. The violins, the murmurs, even the wind seemed to pause. Mark's hands trembled as he flipped through the pages. His face changed, first pale, then flushed, then stone cold. He looked up at Vanessa. "Is this real?" he asked, voice hollow. Vanessa's smile faltered. "Mark, what are you talking about?" But he was already stepping away, reaching for his phone. "Someone call 911, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This woman isn't who she says she is." Vanessa froze. Liam stood beside his father, silent and strong. He had done it. He had stopped the wedding. But what came next would change all their lives forever. The sun filtered softly through rows of cherry blossoms, casting a golden hue on the crowd gathered beneath the floral arch. Guests sat in rows of white chairs, adorned with lavender bows, their faces glowing with anticipation. Mark stood tall at the altar, his tux crisp, his smile wide, his heart steady. Vanessa, draped in an opulent gown of ivory silk, made her slow, rehearsed steps down the aisle, her veil trailing like a river behind her. To everyone present, it was a picture-perfect moment, but to Liam, Mark's 10-year-old son, it was a ticking time bomb wrapped in lace. Liam's small hands clutched a manila folder hidden beneath the pew. Inside it, damning evidence. Emails, fake documents, photos, and a copy of a life insurance policy that bore his father's name but Vanessa's forged signature. His heart raced louder than the string quartet playing softly in the background. No one around him knew the truth except him. And now he had to do the unthinkable. The officiant, a kindly man with a voice like honey, lifted his hand. If anyone here has reason why this couple should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace. Silence fell. Every eye turned expectantly toward the altar. Vanessa smiled sweetly, her gaze locked on Mark. The air was still. And then, I do, Liam's voice, high and clear, sliced through the hush like a blade. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Heads turned. Mark's eyes widened in confusion as he looked down the aisle to where Liam stood, trembling but determined. The boy stepped into the aisle, the folder now gripped in both hands. "Dad, you can't marry her. She's lying to you. She's not who you think she is." Vanessa's face froze, her rehearsed grace cracking at the edges. "Liam," she snapped, her voice sharp enough to sting. "This is not the time for games." But Liam didn't stop. He walked straight to the altar, opened the folder, and pulled out the papers. "She's using a fake name. Look, her real ID. She changed it just last year. And this is the life insurance policy she took out in your name. She's planning something awful. I read her messages. She's working with someone else." He held up the printouts, his voice quivering. "It's all in here. She's not marrying you because she loves you. She wants the money, and after the wedding, she's going to hurt you." The entire garden was in uproar now. Guests whispered, murmured, turned to each other in disbelief. Vanessa's face drained of color. Mark took a step back from her, his breath catching. "Liam," he said gently, "what are you talking about?" But the boy was already handing him the papers. "Read it, Dad, please. Just read." Mark took the documents, flipping through the pages. His fingers trembled. The email printouts, the name change document, the photos of Vanessa with another man. Mark's blood ran cold. Then he saw it. The life insurance policy, complete with a falsified signature and a payout clause that activated just days after the wedding. Vanessa's composure cracked like porcelain. "Mark, it's not what it looks like. I can explain." "Explain what?" Mark snapped, his voice suddenly sharp. "That you lied to me? That you forged my name? That you planned a murder for money scam behind my back?" The officiant quietly stepped aside. A hush fell again, heavy and raw. Mark turned to the guests, his face tight with pain.
"This wedding is over." Vanessa's eyes darted wildly, calculating her next move. She bolted. "Stop her!" someone shouted. But she was already running, lifting the hem of her gown, kicking off her heels, fleeing down the aisle. Guests leapt to their feet, stunned, as the woman in white darted past the rows of chairs and through the garden path. Mark tossed the folder aside and sprinted after her, but someone faster got there first. It was a plainclothes officer. Vanessa didn't know Mark had hired security after Liam had voiced concerns. The man tackled her just as she hit the gravel path beyond the flower arch, pinning her before she could reach the parking lot. A flurry of calls to 911 followed. Sirens echoed in the distance. Liam stood beside the altar, his chest heaving. For a moment, the chaos blurred around him, guests murmuring, phones flashing, the distant yelp of police cars cutting through the breeze. Mark returned, his face pale, his tux rumpled, holding Liam close. "You saved my life," he whispered into the boy's hair. "I didn't listen. I should have. But you were brave enough to stand up, even when I wasn't." The police arrived quickly. Vanessa was handcuffed, her dress dirty and torn, her eyes hollow. The folder of evidence was turned over, along with Liam's detailed notes. One officer knelt beside the boy, awe in his voice. "You might have just solved a case most adults would have missed." As Vanessa was led away, her eyes met Liam's. For the first time, there was no fake smile, just venom, pure and cold. But Liam didn't flinch. He held his father's hand tightly, and together they watched her disappear into the back of the squad car. The guests slowly began to disperse, murmuring about the madness they'd just witnessed. Some left shaken, others stunned. But one thing was clear. This was no ordinary wedding story. This was the tale of a boy who saw the cracks beneath the perfection and had the courage to expose the truth. As the garden emptied, Mark knelt in front of Liam, taking both of his hands. "I almost married someone who wanted me gone, but you saved me." Liam nodded. "I just didn't want to lose you too." Mark pulled him into a hug, tears in his eyes. "You didn't just save me, Liam. You gave me a second chance at everything." And with that, under the broken arch of roses and the silence of a ceremony never completed, father and son walked away, not from love, but towards something even stronger. Trust rebuilt, and a bond that no deception could ever destroy. The following days unfolded like pages torn from a suspense novel, thick with fallout, tension, and quiet, painful introspection. Vanessa, still wearing remnants of her once pristine wedding gown, now sullied and torn, sat handcuffed in a sterile interrogation room. Her silence cracked only when detectives laid out the weight of the evidence Liam had uncovered. There was no more pretending. She confessed, coldly at first, then with thinly veiled resentment. Her plan had been precise: marry Mark, cash in the life insurance, and disappear with the man who was supposed to remain her well-kept secret. That man, her accomplice, Gregory Slade, was arrested 2 days later in a seedy motel 20 miles out of town. His phone was the missing puzzle piece, loaded with chat logs, voice notes, and digital trails linking the two in their elaborate web of deceit. Detectives confirmed what Liam had feared. The life insurance policy was genuine, and the plot was scheduled to unfold just days after the wedding. The community, once buzzing with wedding plans and celebration, was now gripped by disbelief. News outlets picked up the story. Child hero exposes bride's deadly plot at wedding, plastering Liam's face across local stations and newspapers. The same people who once patted his head and dismissed his concerns were now calling him a hero. But Liam, wise beyond his years, knew better than to bask in the praise. His father needed him more than ever. Mark was shattered. The betrayal cut deeper than he could articulate. Nights were the hardest. He'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how he had let someone so venomous into their lives, wondering how he could have been so blind. Shame followed him like a shadow. But every time he started to spiral, Liam was there, sometimes with a goofy joke, sometimes just sitting quietly beside him, their silence a salve. One evening, they sat on the porch swing, wrapped in matching sweatshirts. The sky blushed orange as the sun dipped below the horizon. Mark turned to his son. "How did you know?" he asked softly. Liam shrugged. "She looked at me like I was in her way. And she was always lying about little stuff. I figured if she could lie about dumb things, maybe she was lying about big ones too." Mark exhaled deeply. "You were brave, Lee. Braver than I ever was. You saved me." Liam looked down, kicking gently at the swing. "I just didn't want to lose you, Dad. I already lost Mom. I couldn't lose you too." That night, for the first time in weeks, Mark slept peacefully. They began counseling, not because they were broken, but because they were healing. Their therapist, a kind woman with curly hair and the patience of a saint, helped them sort through the trauma. Mark wrestled with guilt, and Liam with fear. But together, they faced it all. And slowly, something beautiful happened. They started laughing again. Liam's grades improved. He joined the chess club. Mark coached his little league baseball team. They spent weekends hiking, building pillow forts, and watching bad sci-fi movies with microwave popcorn and gummy worms. The house, once quiet and hollow, echoed with life again. One afternoon, Liam came home from school with a certificate clutched in his hand. "Hero of the Year," it read, signed by the local police chief. Mark framed it and hung it in the living room. "I don't need a cape," Liam joked. "Just Wi-Fi access and a good instinct." They laughed, but both knew the weight behind the humor. The trial came and went. Vanessa and Gregory were sentenced to over 20 years in prison for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and identity theft. Liam didn't attend the sentencing, but he asked Mark, "Did she say anything about me?" Mark nodded. "She said she underestimated you. Said you were too smart for your own good." Liam smirked. "Guess that's the nicest thing she ever said to me." Years later, the story still lingered in town gossip, how a boy stood up at a wedding and saved his father's life. But for Liam and Mark, it wasn't about the spectacle. It was about trust restored. It was about learning to listen, especially when the voice speaking is small but sharp. And on the anniversary of the almost wedding, they didn't mourn. They went fishing. They grilled burgers. They played video games until midnight. They celebrated the day not as one marked by betrayal, but as the day they truly became a team. In the end, the truth didn't just save Mark's life. It built a bond stronger than any vow ever could.